In my testimony video here at YouTube, I talk about how the Shroud of Turin and Bible codes led me to Christ, and I wanted to follow up on that. The first book that I read after I became a Christian was one that Gary Habermas had written, and so I've always been really interested in what Gary Habermas has to say about the Shroud. And I just recently, within the last couple of years, I took a course that Gary Habermas did on the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. I took that through online Christian courses, and I took the self-paced program. Now, Dr. Habermas discusses the Shroud several times during that course. He doesn't really spend a lot of time on it, but he does talk about it several times. And in session 19, he recounts something that a Yale professor who had been on the Shroud team said to him. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. He told Dr. Habermas that, quote, "The image on the Shroud appears to be the image we would see if in every pore of the skin we had a micro laser and it was scorching the cloth simultaneously, from the inside out." Then he paused and he told Dr. Habermas, quote, "If the kind of energy it takes to create the Shroud image were converted to nuclear energy, it would have leveled the city of Jerusalem. It would have leveled it." Now, that's the end of the quote, but Habermas also talked about how he will be giving a lecture on the Shroud, and he will be showing slides, and someone will say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, go back to that slide." And Dr. Habermas says that they'll go back and they'll look, and it will be a chiropractor or a medical doctor or a dentist, and he'll say it. He says it happens with all of them. And they'll say, "I read x-rays for a living. Those are teeth." And they'll explain that the Shroud is being backlit, and it's bringing the teeth up. Now, Habermas used to say in his early lectures that scientists didn't know if the radiation was something coming in or something going out. And these medical doctors and dentists and chiropractors would all say, "I can answer that question for you. That's coming out." And they say that they know that it's coming out because it's bringing the image of the teeth through the lips and through the beard, so it has to be coming out of the body. So in other words, the image is backlit because of radiation being carried through the body. And of course, dead bodies do not irradiate cloth, but this one did. So the body in the Shroud is dead, but something incredible is getting ready to happen with that body. Something incredible is happening with that body. So I was just fascinated by that. So I wanted to share that. And I really recommend that course. And like I said, that's from the 19th lesson in the course. Now I've done another video here about the Shroud of Turin. And in the description, I talk about something that was said at a blog. And in that blog, they bring up the fact that there are so many things about the Shroud that are just really hard to explain. And you have to come up with an image, a theory for the image that's going to account for all of the weird things that we see going on with the Shroud. For one thing, the image is a photographic negative. Well, we know that photography had not been invented at that point, but this is a photographic negative. We also know that there is a 3D property to the image. The further away a part of the body was from the cloth, the fainter that part appears. We know that the image is visible only in the upper fibers of the cloth. It does not go all the way through the back of the cloth. We know that when standing close to the cloth, the image is not visible. It is only visible if you stand, several feet away from the cloth. The blood flows on the cloth have been shown to be 100% anatomically correct based on modern physiology. There are no pigments or dyes used on the cloth. The blood is human and contains extractable DNA samples. So it's very hard to put together a theory that can satisfy all of the above items. Of course, skeptics are always coming up with theories. They cannot handle that this is the burial shroud of Christ because it is an image of the resurrection. It is proof of the resurrection, and people who don't want Christ to be resurrected, who don't want Jesus to be resurrected, who deny miracles, they just can't. They have to come up with something to explain the shroud, and they just haven't come up with anything good to explain away the shroud. The shroud was created by the resurrection of Jesus. I'm a firm believer in the shroud. Has a lot to do with why I'm a Christian. It has a lot to do with why I became a Christian. It's not that important to me now, although I still believe it. I also want to share something else that Dr. Habermas said, that he talked about in that course. And in the course, he talked about the Nazareth decree. And I want to share a little bit about that. It's a possible archaeological source for the accounts that we see in the New Testament, specifically in Matthew 28. Now, the Nazareth decree is a stone that was found, obviously, in Nazareth, and it's dated to about 40 to 50 A.D., and it talks about grave robbery, and that anybody who is caught robbing graves is going to be punished by death. And Dr. Habermas comments that that's a really strange comment, because other parts of the Roman Empire didn't have such a punishment. Grave robbery was not punishable by death in other parts of the Roman Empire, just there in Nazareth, where Jesus came from. Of course, it's not where he was born, but it is where he was raised when his family returned from Egypt. So the speculation is that Rome had learned about this prophet who was raised in Nazareth, who came from Nazareth. And so it's called the Nazareth Decree. So the speculation is that since the story was out that he was believed to have been raised from the dead, they wanted to warn everybody, don't disturb the graves, and they put this in Nazareth. Now, it may not be a reference to Jesus at all, is what Dr. Habermas says, but it is interesting that all the way around the rest of the Roman Empire, grave robbery wasn't punishable by death, just there in Nazareth. And there was another thing about the Nazareth decree that he pointed out, and that is Matthew 28 says that when they rolled the stone in front of the grave and put a guard there, they sealed the tomb. So they rolled the stone, they sealed the tomb, they put a guard there, and you know what the Nazareth decree says? It says, anybody guilty of robbing graves and breaking seals on tombs will be punished by death. And Habermas just doesn't know of any other reference from that time that talks about seals on tombs. And, it's in the Matthew account that the stone was rolled back and there was a seal on the tomb and there was a guard in front of it. So that's another possible piece of archaeological evidence besides the Shroud of Turin that reflects on the case for Jesus. But I hope you'll watch my earlier videos on the Shroud and read the comments. There's more information about the Shroud in those previous videos, and I'll try to post another video with more information about the Shroud in the future. Thank you.